Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Anna, Becky, Michael, Albert Shaya. Let's get started. Be'ezrat Hashem, na'aseh v'natzliach. I'd like to welcome you to another session of the Lighthouse Project as we continue our weekly learning on the Zoom platform. Baruch Hashem, we've been able to keep the lessons going virtually, even though that we're not able to meet in person, either in the synagogue or at the Lighthouse. But for right now, we're able to gather together electronically, whether it's on Facebook Live or whether it's on the Zoom platform, and learn a few lessons together. In the past few weeks, I've been paying attention to Parashat Shavua, and I always feel that there's something in the weekly Torah portion that is absolutely relevant. That is absolutely relevant to today's events. Meaning, I always feel that the weekly Torah portion is as fresh as today's newspaper. And having said that, in the past few weeks, I've been paying attention to the underlying stories in the parasha and to see how they're able to connect to current events. And when you look for a message like that, when you're looking to see if the spiritual energy that's available in the parasha, is it actually, coming into effect in this week's current events? And when it does, it's very, very exciting when it jumps out at you and you can see it. So before we can get to that, before I can reveal to you how certain things in the current three parashiyot that we've been on are translated into today's events, we're starting almost like a three-class series. It's called The Hidden Agenda. Tonight will be part 1. Tomorrow will be part 2. And hopefully sometime next week we'll do part 3. This week's this week's portion of the hidden agenda, we're going to zoom in on the RAV, the mixed multitude of the people that left Egypt with the Jewish people, and the EREV, the people that are still around today that are classified as the mixed multitude, and their effect on the Jewish people in the desert, and their effect on our lives today. So before we can get to that, and before we can get to the other parts of this lesson, this might seem like we're reviewing last week's parasha or the parasha from 2 weeks ago, but it's still very, very relevant. And I didn't want this lesson to go this year without speaking about it. I mean, this could have easily been left on the shelf for a different time, but I think it's really, really, really pertinent to what's going on in our lives today. So let's start. Let's do a recap. In Parashat Ba'alotecha, which is just about a couple of weeks ago, the Jews are in the desert, and they are right now after a war with Amalek. They just won that war as soon as they came out of Egypt. They are engulfed by Ananei Kavod, these clouds of glory that are protecting them in the harsh settings of the desert. They have the rolling rock, Be'er Miriam, that is accompanying them throughout this entire journey, giving them a supply of water. And of course, the heavenly food, the heavenly man that comes down from the heaven every single day. The Jews are after the sin of the golden calf. They are right now after Moshe Rabbeinu's ascension to the heaven 3 times, at 40 days each time. One for forgiveness, one for prayer, and one to bring in the second set of luchot, followed by the inauguration of the Mishkan. And all this is roughly about a year from the time that they left Egypt. And we find ourselves in Parashat Ba'alotecha, Perek Yud, the 10th chapter, in the 33rd pasuk, and it says, ויסעו מהר אדוני דרך 3 ימים, וארון ברית אדוני נוסע לפניהם דרך 3 ימים נתנו להם מנוחה. This was the moment where they were actually leaving Har Sinai, because everything that I just told you right now, if you want to imagine it, was a 50-day journey from the splitting of the sea, or from Yetziat Mitzrayim till they reached Har Sinai. They camped on the bottom of Har Sinai up until this very moment. And at this very moment, they are now leaving that area. They're leaving Mount Sinai. And the pasuk says, "Vayis'u mehar Hashem derech 3 yamim." They left the mountain of God and on a 3-day journey. And the Ark of the Covenant is traveling with them. And the next pasuk says, "Va'anan Hashem alehem yomam b'nosam min ha'machaneh," and the clouds of glory, or the cloud is leading them as they're traveling. And then I don't know if you guys are very familiar with this parasha, but this Parashat Ba'alotecha is famously known for these 2 pesukim. These 2 pesukim are said every time we bring out the Torah on Shabbat. Also, these pesukim are famously known because they have 2 nunim. They have a nun in front and a nun in the end of them. 2 pesukim with these upside down letters of nun, and a lot can be said about these 2 pesukim. Some consider it as a book by itself. Some rabbis hold, some Mefarshim hold, some of the commentary hold that actually you have 5 Chamisha Chumshei Torah. We have the 5 books of Moses, but it says in the Sefer Bamidbar, from the beginning of the Sefer up until this pasuk is 1 book. These 2 pasukim is another book, and after that, from the end of this pasuk and the rest of Sefer Bamidbar is another book. In other words, there are actually 7. It's a really, really interesting concept to go into. We've done many classes in the past about it that spoke about it, but see how we can tie in this particular pasuk to our lesson today. And the two pasukim go like this. So again, they are beginning their travels. They're leaving Har Sinai. They have the covenant of the ark leading the way, and the pasuk starts, "V'hi b'nso Aaron vayomer Moshe." And when the time came where the covenant of the ark, the Aaron, started to make its way, started to move, Moshe says, "Kuma Hashem ve'afutzu oivecha." Hashem, get up and let all your enemies disperse. Vayanusu mesanecha mipanecha, and let all your haters go from your face, or dissipate from in front of you. And then when he comes back, he said, when the time to settle down, Moshe would say, "Shuva Hashem evot alfei Yisrael." I'll read it for you. I'll read for you the English translation from the Art Scroll that says, when the ark would journey, Moses would say, "Arise, Hashem, and let your foes be scattered. Let those who hate you flee from before you." And when it rested, he would say, "Reside tranquilly, O Hashem, among the myriad thousands of Israel." So these two pasukim are very interesting. Who are these haters? Who are these foes that Moshe is speaking of? Right now, we're in the bottom of Har Sinai. We just received the Torah for the second time, the second set of Luchot. Not only that, our enemies was Amalek. We just took care of them about a year ago. Who are these enemies? Who are these foes? Who are these haters? Well, in order to understand that a little bit deeper, let's go back. Let's go back to Perik Yud, Pasuk Lamed Gimel, when the Pasuk says, "Vayis'u mehar Hashem derech shloshet yamim," that they traveled from the mountain in a journey of 3 days. Rashi says that they traveled 3 days in 1 day, meaning Malach Shloshet Yamim, they were able to travel 3 days journey in 1 day. And why would they be able to cover so much ground? The equivalent of 3 days journey in 1 day. Shaya Kadosh Baruch Hu chafetz lachnisam le'eretz miyad. Kadosh Baruch Hu was eager to bring them to Eretz Yisrael. He wants them to come to Eretz Yisrael. If you read Rashi in regards to this particular pasuk, I'm sorry, if you read the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, it speaks about it. It says, "Vayis'u mehar Hashem." They go into detail, and they said that at that particular moment, when the Jewish people got up and left Har Sinai, ketinok haborech mibet hasefer, they acted as if they were kids running away from school, like on the last day of school. I don't need to tell you, anybody who's been in school, you know the last day of school. You can't wait to leave. You run away from it. That's what Rashi says. When they left Har Sinai, they ran away like a kid running away from the last day of school. In other words, there was something wrong over here. You have to imagine, this is Har Sinai. This is where the Torah was given. This is where they heard God. This is where they saw God. This is not a place that you just leave like, "Oh, get me out of here." This is a place when you leave it, you have to look back and say, "I'm going to miss you. Thank you for all that you've done for me. I don't want to go." You don't just run away from it. I'll give you an example. When a person goes to a yeshiva and he checks himself in for a year or two, and the time comes for him to go back home and to get a job and start to work, when he leaves that kollel, when he leaves that yeshiva, he should not be at that door, running out that door and saying, "Okay, bye, thank you very much. I can't wait to go back and make millions of dollars." And even if that is true, that he does want to go and make millions of dollars, but when he leaves the yeshiva, he should stand by the door and say, "I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss the days that I was sitting here and learning Torah all day long. I'm going to miss the days, the nights. I'm going to miss my chavruta, my learning partners. I'm going to miss the prayers. I'm going to miss the connection. I'm going to miss the Torah feeling that I had over here. But I have to go. But I'm going to miss you. That's like a proper goodbye that you say to a yeshiva. Similarly, the Jews at that time should have had that type of leave from Har Sinai, not running away from it like a kid running away from school, running from school on the last day of school, as Rashi brings it. Furthermore, when it says Vaisru me'ahar, and they traveled from the mountain, you could read those exact same words, Vaisru maher, and they traveled not mehar, but you take the same word and you read it maher. They ran away quickly. Masechet Shabbat says on this exact same thing. Rabbi Chama says, Al tekri mehar. Here's another opinion on the word mehar. Don't read the word mehar from the mountain. Rather, read it ela me'achar. Meaning that after 3 days, they turned away from God. After 3 days' journey, they already had their back to Hashem, sort of saying, we're not interested. Thank God we left Har Sinai. Now, this is very interesting. This is very, very interesting. You know, this is not a simple generation. This is not a simple group of people. And for them to have that type of reaction to leaving Har Sinai, to want to leave it quickly, to run away from it, to feel that they turned away from God just after 3 days, that right there is considered strike one. Now, if we continue to the famous Pesukim that I was talking about, Vayibin saw Aaron, it says over there that the reason that these two Pesukim are here is by design. The truth of the matter is they don't belong here. These two Pesukim belong in a different place in the Torah. But they were plucked from that different place that they could have been in, and they were placed specifically here between the pasuk or the scenario or the event that they were leaving Har Sinai and between the next event. What is the next event? It says Vahi ha'am kimit'onenim ra be'oznei Hashem, and the people were complaining and they were speaking evil in the ears of Hashem. So since we can't have one strike followed by another strike, you can't have two strikes in a row, because if there's going to be a puranut, in other words, so the Torah put Vayibin Sa'aron Vayomer Moshe Kuma Hashem Vayputzovecha Venesu B'Sechem Panecha right in the middle in order to separate these two events. Because had they been together, then the result of two strikes in a row would have been devastating for Am Yisrael at this point, at this juncture in their journey in the desert. Now, what is the second strike? What is the second mistake that they made? Because the Torah did not want to record two Jewish sins in succession. So like that, they don't deserve Hashem's retribution. So what is the second sin? So in Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, which is just the following Pasuk, the following section, it says, Vahi ha'am kemit'onenim, that the nation was complaining, that the people took to complain. What was their complaint? They said, we're walking for 3 days, there's no rest, were tired. And as Rashi explained to us before, the whole reason why they were traveling 3 days because Hashem was eager to bring them to Eretz Yisrael. But they saw it as something negative. They saw it as something that they should be complaining about. Hashem could not tolerate this. Them seeing this act of kindness of bring them faster to Eretz Yisrael as a reason for them to complain. And he sent a fire to consume them at the edge of the camp, as it says in the pasuk, "Vayichara po vativar bam esh Hashem vatochal b'ktzei hamachane." It says Hashem got angry with him, and he sent a fire that consumed those group of people at the edge of the encampment. So, you always want to make sure that you understand the choice of words of each pasuk. Why would it be that the fire consumed only the people that were at the edge of the encampment? Well, it's very easy to see that if you were looking at a map or if you were looking at the way that the Jewish people traveled. The Jewish people in the desert traveled in a formation. It has special formation where you had the Mishkan and everything that's connected to it in the center, Leviim all around, and then you have all the tribes surrounding it, all covered by Ananei Kavod, which was your air conditioning, was the tool that strained up the valleys, the highs and the lows, killed the snakes, killed the scorpions. I mean, you were engulfed and protected. But outside of this bubble, let's say, there was a group of people that was traveling on the outskirts of these clouds. And those people that were at the edge of the clouds, traveling alongside the Jewish people, were called EREV, RAV, the mixed multitude of people that came with Am Yisrael during the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim. So, the mixed multitude, this EREV RAV, is a combination of people. It's the Hartumim, the Machshefim. It was all those wizards and sorcerers that were dealing with Moshe Rabbeinu and Paro when they saw that Moshe's quote-unquote magic or powers are stronger than theirs. They said, okay, let's go with the winning team. Let's go with that guy. But it was also a bunch of other types of people that were part of this Erev Rav. Idol worshippers. They were from different nations. They weren't necessarily just Egyptians. And this Erev Rav is the one that came with out of Mitzrayim, not out of the request of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather Moshe Rabbeinu. He is the one that wanted them to come because he believed that he would be able to bring them around, to take their fervor or their yearning for spirituality from the side of the Tumah to the side of the Kedusha. But along the way, they were a thorn in our side. Along the way, they're the ones that caused the biggest sin of all, the golden calf. They're the ones that are right now that we're discussing, the ones that are complaining. And because they were traveling, because they didn't belong to any tribe, because the way that the Jewish people were traveling, you had to belong to a tribe. Shevet Dan, Shevet Asher, Shevet Binyamin. If you didn't belong to a tribe, you can't travel with them. You can't get in camp with them. So they ended up being on the edge of the encampment, and that's where the fire went. They were the culprits. Now, let's go back to this word in the first pasuk of Perek Yud Aleph. Vayhi ha'am kemit'onenim, and the people were like complainers. Mit'onenim in Hebrew means, or biblical Hebrew means, complainers. Kemit'onenim, that chaf before it, means like complainers. The word, the letter chaf in front of a word, kemit onanim, like complainers. It means, a literal translation is it adds the word like. So, were they complainers or were they like complainers? And what is the difference? What is the difference between a complainer and they were acting like a complainer? And before we dig deep into this lesson, I just want to point out the beauty of our Torah, that how one letter can change the meaning of everything, and this entire lesson tonight is based on this one letter. That normally we can just skim through it and say, oh, they were complainers. No. Kemit onenim. What does that mean? Kemit onenim. Okay. Rashi says, Vahi ha'am. When it says the word ha'am, Rashi says, by the way, Rashi this week's in this particular parasha, in every parasha, but Bahalotecha, great help, a tremendous amount of help in understanding of what's going on and what's the storyline that's happening behind the scenes. But it's saying ha'am. Anytime that it says the word ha'am, know that they are reshaim, wicked people. So vehi ha'am, and the wicked people and the reshaim were kemitonim, like complainers. So right away we see that the people that are involved are wicked. Continues to say, what is kemit onenim? He gave one word, and the word is alila. What is alila? Alila means a plot. In other words, and the wicked people had a plot. What is the plot that these people had? What was their ulterior motive? Rashi continues to tell us, Lifrosh machare hamakom. Their plot was to leave, to abandon the religion, to abandon spirituality, to run away from Har Sinai, where the Torah was given. They wanted to leave the spiritual life and go back into the mundane, go back to the physical. They wanted to run away. They wanted to separate from God. That was their plot. If you go to Pasuk Dalet, their name changes. They're not called the complainers anymore, mitonenim. In Pasuk Dalet, they get the name V'asafsuf asher bekirbo hitavu ta'ava. Now, the Torah refers to them as asafsuf. What's asafsuf? Rashi tells us, Elu EREV RAV. These were the mixed multitude, shene'esfu alehem, that were added on to the Jewish people, betzetam mitzrayim. That's the asafsuf. The asafsuf is the mixed multitude of people. And what did they do? Meaning, right after that, they got this fire that burnt a large portion of their people because they complained about walking or for running away from Har Sinai. They continue. Here's strike 3 now. This is, it doesn't stop. They cultivated a craving. They started to say, and they sat down and they started to cry, them and Bnei Israel. In other words, they were able to convince not just the EREV RAV, the people themselves, but the nation of Israel as well, Bnei Israel. Where's the meat? Where's the daga? Where's the fish that we used to eat for free? Where's the kishuim? Where's the vatechim? Where's the batzalim? Where's the shumim? They're asking, where are the cucumbers? Where are the watermelons? Where are the onions? Where's the garlic? So it's very, very, very interesting what's happening over here, because we have this asafsuf from the word ne'esaf. He got added on. We were the nation of Israel, and this asafsuf, this group of people got ne'esaflanu, got added to us. V'ta'avu ta'ava, and they cultivated a craving. How do you cultivate a craving? You might want, we have to understand this this concept. When you have a ta'ava, when you have a craving, when you're desiring something, or even if you're lusting for something, it's a thought, it's an idea, it's here in the moment, and then it can dissipate, it can go away. But when you cultivate it, is when you take that desire, when you take that craving, when you take that lust, and you don't stop thinking about it. You don't stop thinking about it. You keep working up that muscle. We kept talking about how you can work your the anger muscle or the emunah muscle. Same thing with desire. It's a muscle that the more you think about something, the more you desire. I'll give you an example. They were talking about how they miss, because keep in mind, they have the man, they have Be'er Miriam, and it's holy food. It's the food of angels. They don't even have to go to the bathroom. There's no excrement. Nothing comes out of the body when you eat the man. And they're saying, you know what? We don't want the man. We don't like holy food. This holy food we don't connect to it. You know what we miss? We miss the meat. We miss the fish. We miss the watermelon. We miss the garlic, the onions, the cucumbers. Rashi tells us again, why would they ask for these specific foods? Because ironically, these are the only foods that the man could not turn into. The man could not turn into a watermelon or garlic or onion or cucumbers. And the reason why it couldn't turn into those four things is because they're not good for women that are pregnant, which is very interesting. At that particular time, I know a lot of pregnant women love watermelon and love cucumbers, helps them out with their heartburn. But apparently at that particular time, or maybe it still is, I don't know. But the man didn't taste like that, so they went on that. Oh, you remember that? Remember that taste? Remember how we used to have cucumber, cold cucumber with lemon and salt? Ah, yeah. Remember we used to put it on the barbecue? Oh, yeah. Remember we used to put it in the soup? Oh, they're cultivating it. They don't stop thinking about it, and the more they talk about it, the more they're working themselves up, the more they got the place set to buy into it. Yeah, I also miss the cucumbers. I also miss the watermelon. Yeah. Let's go complain. We miss those foods. We're sick and tired of the heavenly man. Could you imagine? Now, this ta'avu ta'ava, this cultivating, this desire, this craving, this is something that we find in every day. When somebody's constantly, there's something on their mind, they can't let it go. Like when somebody's angry, when he's thinking, he's focused on one person. When I see that person, I'm going to tell him, and I'm going to be like this, and I'm going to mention that, and I'm going to tell him off. When a person is angry, he's constantly building up until they pop. Similarly is with food. There's some people that have, they don't just eat food just to survive. They kind of, when I get that burger, oh, maybe I'll get it with cheese, without cheese. Oh, maybe I'll get it with fries, without fries. There's people that don't stop thinking about food all day long. Similarly is, people that think all day long about money. Money, from the time that they wake up to the time that they go to sleep. But if I make this sale, if I make that deal, if I sell it like this, if I sell it like that, if I buy high, if I sell low. There's a lot of people that are struggling even with sex, but they're cultivating this craving. They don't stop thinking about it. They don't stop watching it. They don't stop doing it. All of a sudden, it takes over them. That's what's happening with it. It's constantly being worked out. And when people are around you and you discuss it with them, they almost like tie into it also. They buy into the story. When they said, oh, we miss how we used to eat the food chinam. It's not that they got it for free. They didn't get it for free. As a matter of fact, the Jewish people needed to go out to the fields to get their bricks and the straw and the hay and the water to fill their quota. They didn't even get that. You think they got free food? They never got free food. The EREV, maybe they got it. But the EREV, when they said, Shachal b'mitzrayim chinam, chinam meaning not free from the money, that they got it at no cost. Free that they didn't have to work for it spiritually. They didn't have to do the bracha before. They didn't have to do the bracha after. Eat kosher, not kosher, meat, milk, shech, not shech. They wanted to just eat bechinam without having to work for it. Give me what I want for free. Give me what I want for not, without work, without the spiritual work. That was their complaint. Now, imagine, if you will, this scenario. Imagine you're Am Yisrael. It's about a year after Yetziat Mitzrayim, and we have over here a group of people that are going around the camp with a big poster. They're doing a demonstration. They're doing a protest with big posters saying, "We want watermelon. We want cucumbers. Where's the onion? Where's the garlic?" You know, and Am Yisrael, as they're looking at them, like, yeah, we also miss Egypt that way. We also miss the onions, the garlics, the watermelon. You know, that's the story that they're selling. But what's really going on? Rashi told us that they're plotting. Rashi's telling us that they have an alila, that there's something behind the scenes that they're onto. I mean, did they really miss Egypt? Was watermelon and cucumber really better than the man? The thing that can taste like practically anything in the world? The most delicious thing ever? Food from the heavens? Was really Egyptian cucumber better than that? What's beneath the surface? What's really going on over here? What is the RAV doing? Trying to convince all the Jews, let's go back to Egypt so we can eat the Egyptian vegetables and fruits. So Rashi, you have to go back to that one word that he gave us, alila. They were plotting. The mixed multitude, we know, went with the winning team. They went with the Jewish people. They went with Moshe Rabbeinu. They went with the Jewish God. But after Har Sinai, when they got 613 mitzvot, when they realized the work that a Jew has to do, as a Jew, we have the neshama that comes from Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, that when we hear 613, we know it's 613 ways to connect to God. It's 613 ways to succeed in life, 613 ways to get closer to our ultimate tikkun. Someone who doesn't come from that genealogy, doesn't come from that lineage, looks at that 613 as a death sentence. It's stifling. It's choking them. They can't breathe. 613, I can't breathe. It's too much for me. Ratzu lifrok ol. They ran away from Har Sinai. They don't want the yoke of heaven. They don't want the yoke of Torah. They wanted to run away from Har Sinai, run away from spirituality. And they wanted to go back to the mundane. They wanted to go back to the chomriyut. They wanted to go back to Egypt, where everything is chinam, where everything is free, when you don't have to work, when you get what you want for free. No berachot, no kashrut, no spirituality. And they were campaigning, trying to convince more Jews to believe in their cause. And they did. Because it says over here that they vayivku gam b'nei Israel. They were able to convince real Jews to sit down and cry with them. Yes, the watermelons. Yes, the cucumbers. Let's go back to Egypt. Can you imagine? They bought into their story. So we see that the EREV cries and complains on what is actually good for them, which is the man, Yetziat Mitzrayim, being part of the Jewish nation, and tries to even convince others to follow them back to Egypt and to follow their initiative of a new movement going back to Egypt. And they start to complain about the journey, the food, the leadership. But in reality, the plot, the hidden agenda, is to leave the Torah behind. They're convincing people, let's go back to Egypt. But what's beneath the surface is let's leave the Torah. Let's leave the Torah. Let's leave the spirituality. Let's leave the ruchaniyut. Let's go back to gashmiut. Who's with me? Who's coming with me? Do you feel it like me? And they convinced. They convinced a bunch of Jews to go in their way. Right here, I'll just pause before we continue to the second part of the lesson, but I'll just pause and throw in a little bit of a life lesson over here. And you should know that in life, this is a common tactic of the Yetzer Hara. Anytime when you're facing a challenge, rather than overcoming the challenge, rather than passing the challenge, people will often choose to forget all the bad that has happened to them in the past and remember only the good that's in the past, and will want to go back in the past rather than face the current challenge and head into the future. In other words, the EREV had an opportunity over here to face their challenge of the 613 and go to a higher level. Rather, they said, no. I don't want that challenge. No, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. Take me to where I'm comfortable. Take me back home. Take me back to Egypt. Take me back to where I don't have 613, where I'm not being challenged, where I'm not being taken out of my comfort zone. Many, many times people forget about all the bad that's happened to them in order to go back to that comfort level, as opposed to saying, let's forge forward. Let's take on the challenge. Let's take it to the next level. The EREV wanted to go back to the old, comfortable way of life. And they were able to convince a few people along with them to go back. Now, even though that this is a lesson that we can see how people can't be presenting a certain thing, a certain agenda. Let's go back to Egypt for the food. We know that their hidden agenda is let's run away from the Torah, let's run away from spirituality. See that sometimes people can present a certain fact, but in reality, there's a hidden agenda beneath it all. And we also see that those people oftentimes will convince other people to see things their way. And the people that see it their way are not in on the hidden agenda. They are only sold on the headline, not on the deeper level of what the whole movement is about. So when I understood this lesson of the EREV, I felt like it jumped out at me in connection to what's happening now currently in the news. In today's headlines, allow me to paint the pictures for you. In today's headlines, we see George Floyd. A terrible crime. Terrible, terrible crime. We have a bad cop that made a bad decision. He killed a person with a knee on his neck. Terrible thing. Can't condone such things. 100% things like that should not happen. Not with law enforcement, not in any type of situation. Besides the fact that the country has some sort of racial tension with years of bad history between law enforcement and the black community. And all that I understand. I understand that. If I just take a look at that story of George Floyd being killed by a cop in that fashion, it's fresh news when it just hit the headlines. I understood that moment. Because that's what we saw and that's what we processed. But several weeks after the killing, now that some time has passed, we see that the George Floyd killing has turned into part of other movements. We have Black Lives Matter. And Black Lives Matter, on face value, you see that they intervene for blacks and black communities when violence is inflicted by the state or law enforcement. Oh, that sounds good. You know, there's some sort of inequality in the world between law enforcement and black people, and there's a group of people that want to, right the wrong. And up until this point, I get it. Up until this point, I understand the George Floyd killing and what's wrong with it, and I understand Black Lives Matter and their involvement and why they want to be part of this story. But then, the demonstrations that were throughout the country, trying to highlight this event as if it's some sort of a unique event or something that is that has caught our attention. Those peaceful demonstrations turned into riots, and then they turned into looting, and then they turned into destroying public property. And when I started to see all that, I started to lose the connection to the story. I started to lose the connection to the understanding of what's going on over here. I just didn't understand, how does looting a Gucci store bring justice to George Floyd? How does stealing from innocent, hardworking business owners mean justice for the killing of George Floyd? How does that balance the scale of George Floyd's death and social injustice? I just couldn't understand how all that was happening in that moment, how that wrong made everything right. And how weeks and weeks and weeks of hate, violence, destruction, loss of life, loss of civility and peace was supposed to really right the wrong of the murder or the death of George Floyd. So I began to believe that there's something hidden over here, that there's a hidden agenda, that as everyone is holding a George Floyd poster, and as everybody's holding a Black Lives Matter poster, there's a alila, there's a plot over here behind the scenes. So as things progress and absolute fear is engulfing the country, as anarchy starts to spring in the United States of America, we see that Black Lives Matter is holding signs for George Floyd. But who is behind Black Lives Matter? If you're going to be in the news for more than a hot minute, you know that people are going to search and look and try to find out what you're about. And it was very interesting that if you try to donate to that movement, it goes to the Democratic National Convention. You donate to Black Lives Matter, and it goes to Biden, it goes to Hillary, it goes to, it's amazing. You go over there, there's a whole list. And I'm like, I'm scratching my head. Why would donating to Black Lives Matter go to the Democrats? What's the connection? Also, if you look at the platform of Black Lives Matter, you see that besides all the racially connected platforms that they hold, they also include a very, very strong stance against Israel. Why? What does Black Lives in America have to do with Israel and what's going on over there? What is the connection? And if you read further, you see that they support the Palestinians and are currently marching against Israel, marching against annexation. And I still couldn't understand, what does George Floyd and life in America, what does George Floyd and life in America for a Black person have to do with Gaza? What is their connection? And to add to this civil unrest between Blacks and law enforcement, or the new white privilege that everyone is talking about, started to scratch my head when I saw another group of people. When we see Antifa, which is an anti-fascist movement, comprised of anarchists, people that don't want any sort of government, and that they have militant opposition to right-wing America. And it's an organized group that's fueled the fire of these riots. Absolutely fueled the fire. Even supplying bricks and supplies, paying demonstrators to riot. And when you dig in a little bit more about Antifa, you see that they're backed up by one of the wealthiest men in the world, George Soros, a Jew that survived the Holocaust by snitching on other Jews. He's part of many foundations. One of them is the Open Society Foundation, and he supports civil society groups funding this unrest. And you start to notice that almost all these riots, this lootings, these killings are out of control, mostly democratic states. And we see that the officials that we have in office are part of the problem as well, as they let it continue. They lock up the police force, prompting them not to respond. And you see our police force absolutely getting demolished by mobs of people. And just when you think that there couldn't be another hidden agenda in regards to what's going on, we're still dealing with a global pandemic that is all part of a bigger master plan, China, New World Order. I mean, do your own research of what that's all about. And this whole bigger controller of all these sub-movements that are going on, that is using each group of people as a pawn to infuse fear, hate, and uncertainty in society as they make their final advances to a new world order. So it's very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. But let's see how we can connect it to the parasha that we just spoke about. Let's see how we can explain mitonenim, the complainers, or better yet, they were ke mitonenim. Remember, the key point of this entire lesson is that chaf, that they were like complainers. What does it mean, like complainers? That there's a plot. So we know in the parasha we have the EREV, they're holding up the signs. Oh, send us back to Egypt. We missed the food. What's the subplot? Get us out of here. We don't want to perform the 613. Get us out of here. We don't want the spiritual life. We want the physical life. Take us back. They're pitching one thing on the posters, but in reality, they want out. In reality, they want to get out of what they just received on Har Sinai. Oh, we want avatihim, kishuim, batzalim. Oh, really? That's what you really want? No, no, no. You want to leave the Torah, and you want to take more Jews with you back to Egypt. That's the truth. How does it compare to what's going on in the news today? Oh, everybody's holding up George Floyd. Everybody's got that poster up. Everybody's got that poster up. But hidden in agenda number one, we see Black Lives Matters. What's their excuse? Oh, let's loot. Let's loot. We want everything chinam. Huh. The RAV also wanted chinam. They also wanted to eat without brachot. They also wanted to have everything without the Torah. They also want the Gucci belt and the Nike sneakers for free. They don't want to work for it. They want it for free. They don't want it. The hidden agenda. Yeah, it's for George Floyd. What does that have to do with all the looting that you're doing? What does that have to do with it? Hidden agenda. Hidden agenda number two. Pro-Palestine. You're holding a George Floyd poster. What does it have to do with Palestine? Why are you against Israel? How did this... the George Floyd killing got hijacked. All of a sudden, anybody who wants to jump on it has become even black trans lives matter. They even got hijacked by the drag queens of New York. Everybody's jumping on this movement. Oh, you guys are really hating the government? Okay, you know, whatever you're feeling, we're feeling too in Palestine. Let's be brothers. Let's be friends. There's a conference going on right now between Palestine and Black Lives Matters. They're connecting right now. What's the connection? What's George Floyd on the poster have to do with black people in America and Palestinians in Israel? Hidden agenda. Hidden agenda number three, anarchy. Anarchy. We see that we have over here people holding up posters that, oh, George Floyd. But in reality, we have people that want to defund the police. They want to reform the government. They don't want any sort of government. All of a sudden, you realize that there's a whole slew of people living amongst us that are just waiting for anarchy, just waiting for the day that they can inflict terror and pain on anyone who doesn't see it in their way. But what poster are they holding? George Floyd. Hidden agenda, anarchy. Hidden agenda number four, the control and fear of the human race. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been going through a virus in China, and it escalated to a pandemic. And just when we thought that we were, then to a lockdown, quarantine, then riots, then fear, then to control people, then everything here is little by little, we're getting numbed as somebody behind the scenes is dictating all the things that's happening to us in order to numb us to a bigger thing that's about to come. They always say, oh, this is the new norm. This is the new norm. This is the new norm, the new norm. Everybody's adjusting to these new norms. Having riots in the street, that's the new norm. Having the police not defend its people, that's the new norm. How did that become the new norm? Because they're desensitizing us. Because they're going to switch it into a new world order. Hidden agenda. But on the news, what do you see? George Floyd on a poster. This is kemit onenim. Mitonenim is the complaining about George Floyd. Kemit onenim is the hidden agenda beyond. They're complaining. They don't like what happened to that black man, how he got murdered. But in reality, this is what they want. Anarchy. Black lives. Palestine. New World Order. So many different people are jumping on it. It's not one group. They're not even interlaced together. But some way, somehow, somebody from the top is using each one the right way at its proper time. Even look at the way that the Democratic Party has been reacting to what's going on. That in itself is strange. We used to trust politicians. to a certain extent. We can't even believe how they're talking, how they're acting, how they're behaving. And they're convincing people. We have Jews, millions of Jews still that are still going to vote for that party. Now, none of what's happening right now in the world or in America has to do with the George Floyd killing. None of it. First day, second day, third day, maybe. Everything else is a hidden agenda. These hidden agendas have been slow cooking and on the back burner for years, waiting for the right time to come out. The George Floyd killing has been hijacked by thugs, by anarchists, by political opportunists, and social media vampires. Everybody has jumped on the George Floyd train. And the facts are that African Americans make up 13% of the population, which is only about 40 to 50 million. And there's only about another 200 to 250 million whites. And if you take the numbers, and I'm sure you've all seen it, there's more black on black crime. 90% of the deaths of black people is blacks killing blacks. And as far as averages and percentages, less blacks die by law enforcement officers than any other race. They're the bottom of the list. There's no reason for all this hoopla. But opportunists jumped on this in order to push their agenda. Today's lesson is to let you know that RAV is still around. The mixed multitude of people that go around trying to convince people about their movement but have hidden agendas, it didn't go away. It didn't die in the desert. It's not something from thousands and thousands of years ago. It's as fresh as the headlines in the newspaper today. EREV is still around. Not only are they around, but their tactics as well. They put up signs for righteous endeavors, but behind the scenes is a hidden agenda. These are very unique times that we're in right now. Can't believe all that you see, especially since the media itself is corrupt. So because everything around us is just wrong, you must be connected to what's right. If everything around us is sheker, is lies and deceit, everything is a hidden agenda and not revealed to us, then we must hold on to the only thing that is emet and truth, which is the Torah. It's the only way to get through these times. What was the fate of the EREV? They got burned by fire. They got burned by fire. In society, there will always be movements. There will always be trends, fads, social or political. But you must not be quick to be convinced. Remember in the beginning how we felt. Oh, what a terrible thing that happened to that gentleman. Should never happen again. That cop needs to go to jail. Oh, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, stand up for that guy. Stand up for him. That was wrong what happened right there. But just fast forward to just a few days later, a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, when we were able to see what's the hidden agenda of everyone behind, we sort of don't feel the same. I mean, the initial sorrow that we feel for that, for George and for what happened, that still remains. Everything that followed is absolutely wrong. EREV of the desert is alive and well and is with us today in every society. Whether it's here in the diaspora, where we see it around us, with the Goyim, And even in Eretz Yisrael, even in Israel, they are sitting in parliament. They are going against Torah and Torah Jews, trying to outlaw Brit Milah, trying to cancel out religious life, going against the Shabbat, going against Kashrut, going against the rabbis. Within our country, the only Jewish country in the world wants to nullify the Torah. Many times we mentioned that the Gemara calls this world Olam HaSheker, the world of lies. In the times that we're living in today, that is considered Ikvita de Mashiach, Masechet Sanhedrin says something very interesting about it. It says, Pnei Hador kepnei hakelev. Many times we were able to learn those pages together in our lessons, but each time you can extract something new to learn from it. The face of the generation is like the face of a dog. I heard something funny about it. A dog that, what do we do for a dog? We put a muzzle on him, right? Look at us. Pnei Hador, the face of this generation, is like the face of the dog. Just like we put a muzzle on the dog, what do we put? We're all walking around with masks. Just like the dogs. That's the time of Mashiach. But Pnei Hador kepnei hakelev means that in the time of Mashiach, that generation is going to be brazen like a dog. It's going to be disrespectful. There's going to be no shame in that society. And I can tell you right now, if you've seen anything on social media, you see people that have no shame, no values, no morals. The Gemara told us when that generation comes and you see that in the streets, Mashiach is coming. It continues to say, Ha'emet na'ederet. The truth will be hard to find. Lies will prevail. It's very hard to know what's real today. It's very hard to find the truth. Everything is hidden in layers and layers of lies. The truth will be hard to find. Ha'emet na'ederet. In the 98th page on the first side, it says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Im ra'ita dor shetzarot rabot ba'ot alav, chake lo. On that same page, in the same Masechet Sanhedrin, it says, Rabbi Yochanan says, if you see that you are alive in a generation where the troubles don't end one after the other, just when you think one is done, another one is right after it, another one right. Just when you think there was a virus, pandemic, riots, shooting, looting, it doesn't end. People don't know what's going to happen next. He says, when you are in a generation as such, chakelo, wait for him. Wait for Mashiach. That's the time that you wait for him. That's the time that he's supposed to come. When you read Masechet Sanhedrin, when it describes when Mashiach is coming, it's as if you're reading today's newspaper. Everything that's written over there is exactly described in the current events. There's a lot of opinions trying to convince us of one narrative or another. There's a lot of opinions. And everybody has their 15 minutes of fame. Everybody has Facebook Live. Everybody has social media. Everybody is willing to let you know their opinion. And sometimes we get swayed one way or the other. It's very convincing. I can tell you that I even heard this Louis Farrakhan. I heard him in an interview. He's so convincing. He's spewing out pure hatred. He's against the Jews. He says the worst things in the world, but I want to tell you, he's very convincing. He's very convincing. I can see how people can be fooled by the words that he says. And that's the power of speech. There's people out there today that have such a slick tongue that they can convince you to believe in the lies. We even have millions of Jews that are getting ready to vote for people like that. ready to vote for Democrats that are outright against the state of Israel right now. How's that possible? We have people that are in office that are anti-Semites and that are out in the open going against Jews and Jews in America, not just Jews in Israel. And there are Jews that are going to vote for them in office. They're going to vote them in. The EREV RAV got burnt by the fire in the desert, and those who went in their ways got burnt as well. Today's lesson is do not repeat history. Do not repeat history. EREV RAV represents the people that show you one thing but have a hidden agenda behind. And nowadays, there are tons of movements out there, religious, secular, political, that put up an amazing front, but beneath and underneath it all is a sinister plot. And you have to be on the lookout. Don't be so quick to believe the story. Don't be so quick to buy into what is being sold to us. Understand that we're living in the time where truth is hard to find. Lies run rampant. It is our duty to cling on to the truth, to the emet. And there's only one emet in the world, and that's the Torah. And that's the only way you're going to be able to pass this patch of time. We're going to go into some time, months, years, who knows how long it's going to be. There's a lot of craziness and a lot of lies are going to go around. The only way you're going to make it to the other side and make it and merit to the times of Mashiach is if you're holding on to the truth every single day. That you have a Torah. You have your Torah that you're holding on to every single day. Otherwise, you're going to get chewed up by the EREV RAV. They're just too slick. And there's just too many. This was the first installment of a 3-part series called The Hidden Agenda. Tomorrow, I'm going to open your eyes to a similar hidden agenda of the leaders, both in the Parsha of the Meraglim, of Shlach Lecha, and the leaders of the world today. Very, very interesting lesson, and I would not miss the third lesson, the wrap-up of this of the hidden agenda, because once you take a little bit of attention to what's going on in the weekly Torah portion, and you touch it and you match it up to what's going on in current events, two things will happen. One, you'll be a lot smarter watching the news. You'll be a lot smarter with current events. And two, you can really discover or rediscover the power of our Torah and how it could speak to you and does speak to you today. Current events, what's happening in the world today is found in those pages written thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Hashem varich otchem, sameach otchem, and Be'ezrat Hashem we stay safe, and we stay healthy, and that we, Be'ezrat Hashem, each one at their right time will make their way to Eretz Yisrael, and we should all live together happily and dance in one big circle with Mashiach in the middle. שיתו ליבכם לחילה, פסגו מנתה, למען תספרו לדור האחרון. I'm going to unmute everyone in case you have any questions, and then we'll sign off.
Excellent class.
Abraham, thank you so much. Good to see you. Good to know the Torah is reaching Canada.
I'm thinking about moving to Israel.
Everybody is. Everybody is thinking about to Israel. You have to do it at the right time. You have to do it.
Smart, I know.
You have to do so. I see you. I see you. It's you have to do it. You have to first of all get the information, speak to people that are going through the process. There's a guy to the right of you. His name is Abi Sakal. Used to be a Canadian also.
Hey,
Former
I'm
Canadian
Canadian.
from Montreal, thinking of moving to Israel. It's good to talk to people that are thinking about going, that are talking to people that are living there, what they're going to do. But eventually we all have to go there. The rabbis are telling us it's going to be some tough times. You're either going to go through those tough times in the diaspora and deal with that extreme anti-Semitism that's going to come during that time, similar to the time of the Holocaust, where people were just sitting around thinking it's never going to happen. Or you're going to go to Israel, where you're going to be amongst brothers and Jews, and you're just going to deal with a different type of difficulties, which will be, the wars that are going on. But it seems to me that the land of Israel, it has a much larger protection than anywhere else.
Have the
Everybody-
passport offices reopened?
Say it again.
Have the passport offices reopened?
The passport offices here in America. Here in America, what I understand, they're super backed up, and it's about the 2-month wait. We just went to go get the passports for the family, and they said it's going to take some time.
Wow.
Abi, I have to unmute you. Hold on. How do you do it? Has to unmute. Okay, go ahead.
I never thought the day would come that you would have to unmute me, but okay. Sean, question for you. So the EREV, are these guys, they all get consumed in the flyer? And if
No.
they continue, not all, because obviously you're saying they continue.
Yeah. After the Egel, right? Some of them got killed. After they complained for running away, for the long walk, some of them also got burnt by that fire. After that, they're the ones that complained. And then when Hashem gave him the food, he gave him the food, he gave him the slav, he gave them the, Hashem set up for them a full table in the desert. And then they died with the meat between their teeth. So some of them went over there, but some of them still continued because they're still around with us today. Because you have to understand one thing, if you really want to understand what's going to be in the future. They say the final Geula is going to be like the first Geula. The first Geula was Mitzrayim and everything that happened over there. Almost everything that happened in that time is going to happen in the final Geula. So just like they had the RAV, we're going to have RAV. Just like they had their Mitzrayim, obviously we're all going to have our personal Mitzrayim. It's going to be identical in the same way that Hashem saved us from there, miraculously. He once again will save us miraculously, just in a different way. So that he's asking me if there's going to be more makot. I don't know if you're going to call it makot, but there's definitely something going on. Pandemic is a makah. You can see that's considered a makah. Hold on. It's definitely considered like a makah. Makah, Becky, is a plague. This is a plague. So typically I don't talk about politics because I don't keep up with it much. I don't watch too much television.
Give me 1 second. Is that okay?
Yeah, I hear you. But I think it's very, very interesting how what's playing out in politics today and what's playing out behind the scenes is identical to what was happening thousands of years ago in the desert. There's nothing new under the sun. And that's the EREV of today. All these things that you're seeing, the anarchists, the Black Lives Matter, the George Soros, the New World Order, or whatever is happening in Israel right now with the government, all that, that's the EREV. Those are the troublemakers of the world. Okay, hang on a second.
So
Yes.
there was something that I read. I think it was a total of 14,900 or something that died in this period. I don't know if they were the EREV Rav, but I know that they were saying that in Tisha B'Av, every Tisha B'Av, they would they would sleep in a grave, and a lot of them wouldn't wake up. It's not related to the students of Rabbi Akiva, which I got confused to. It was apparently in the parasha of last week. Are those the EREV Rav that were dying? Is that the number 14,500 or whatever? I can go look what the number was.
No, this is you're talking about two different things.
The complainer. The
14,900, or let's just call it 15,000, right? And I'll give you the quick calculation. If you take the 600,000 Jews that left Egypt, right, and the 600,000 Jews, meaning the ones between the age of 20 to 60 and just men, not counting the elderly, the young, and the women, is 600,000. They are the generation of the desert, Dor HaMidbar, Dor HaDe'ah, because they sinned because of the sin of the Meraglim, that they spoke Lashon Hara Eretz Yisrael. Those 600,000 did not have a merit to go into Israel. So if you take 600,000 divided by 40, that gives you 15,000. So every single year on Tisha B'Av, all of them everybody that was in the desert would dig a grave, and they would go to sleep in that grave on Tisha B'Av. And every Tisha B'Av, 15,000 would not get out of that grave, and they would sleep, and they would cover them. And that would go every single year, until all 600,000 were done, which is a total of 40 years. There's a beautiful lesson that we did on that, for Tisha B'Av, which is called the Tisha B'Av prayer, about the last group. What happened to the last group? I'll try to see if I can share it in the next week or two. What happened to the last group that buried themselves? Did they get up or they didn't get up? That's one thing. The thing of Rabbi Akiva's students, that's the 24,000 that died with the Nasi of Shevet Shimon. That's Cosbi and Zimri. Those 24,000 were the reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva's students, and they were also the reincarnation of the 24,000 people that died in Shechem when Levi and Shimon went and massacred them 3 days after they got the Brit Milah, because Shechem and Hamor is the one that raped Dinah, if you recall.
Right. So none of these had to do with the EREV Rav that got consumed in the fire.
No.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, guys, if there's no more questions, I want to thank you for listening. And I try to not keep it political anymore. Well, after this, there's 2 more lessons that might have some politics in it. All right. Hey, Josh, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Hey, Anna, thank you for tuning in. Yehuda, Becky, Hugh, have a good one. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to do part 2. Take care.
Thank you, Sharone.
You're welcome.